And now, live from Level 5 Productions on the island of Milleronia, it's The Larry Miller Show. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and everyone who's been beaten up for smoking. Hi, folks, and welcome back to the Larry Miller Show. I'm Larry Miller, but in a way, aren't we all? And boy, oh boy, is it beautiful today here on Milleronia. I hope you're like this too. You just can't beat a beautiful day. It's been too hot, as I've mentioned already, as you ought to know. When I'm on the mainland in the Los Angeles area, it's too hot. It's crazy hot, and it's not okay hot. But here on Milleronia, where it's true, I control the weather personally, it's always gorgeous, but it matters still to say, wow, good job today, Larry. It's extra special beautiful. And it is here. Boy, oh boy. And of course, that's the Sam Shepard Orchestra and the June Foray Dancers, featuring boy tenor Brad Simpson asking the musical question, in show business, if you're a second banana, is it because you lack appeal? Well, good question, Brad. And the answer is yes. I think it's because if you're a second banana in the movies, let's say, is it because you lack appeal? Yes. Yes, it is. There's nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing bad about it. But if a star is a star and he's adored by the public, everyone who goes to see movies, you know, if Errol Flynn is just so handsome and what a hero, and what a smile, and what he was so appealing to women, and yes, he's the first banana. He's the star. And, you know, when no one really needed to love his second banana that much, who was, you know, usually a guy who would say things like, hey, boss, you know, and there's nothing wrong with saying things like that. So it's a good question, Brad. In show business, if you're a second banana, is it because you lack appeal? Yes, probably. But there's nothing wrong with that, because you know what? So many appealing actors and so many appealing parts are done by second bananas. And it makes us love the movies even more. And it makes us love those fellas even more, too. Men, and I think the same is for women also as well. For all female stars and for all female second bananas. Good question, though, Brad. And by the way, I mentioned there, and the Colonel agreed, that Sam Shepard would lead our orchestra today, and he just passed away a few days ago. And Sam, well, good Lord, what a playwright he was, and he made characters, and he made dialogue. He was sort of, he liked to think of himself as sort of a cowboy writer. And that's the way he liked. But boy, could he play that and be that and write it. And by the way, in addition to his fame, his well-deserved fame as a great playwright, boy, oh boy, did we like him as an actor, too. And, well, he was no second banana. And, you know, he was good-looking enough to, go out with and marry all sorts of beautiful actresses. And, you've seen him in a zillion things. Sam Shepard, well, for one thing, The Right Stuff. He played Chuck Yeager, the great pilot, the real and true and great pilot, in, The Right Stuff. Sam Shepard was in so many movies and just terrific in all of them. And this is a chance for me and the Colonel to just send our tip of the hat to a great talent and say, onward and upward, son. And I mentioned the June Foray Dancers. speaking of great talents, she was one too, and she also just passed on, well, a week or a week and a half ago, approximately. June Foray, she was born, by the way, in 1917 and died, and she was born in Springfield, Massachusetts. And I know something about Western Massachusetts. And she died July 26th, just a week or so ago. And, well, if you do the adding, they say, wait a minute, born 1917, died 2017. That's right. She was just about 100. And you knew her from 1,000 things you've seen. She was, among other things, a great voice actress and did so many things. We knew her whole career. She was active working in voice work from 1930 to 2014. She was so many things. She was on the radio show with Jimmy Durante on his show as a regular, and Steve Allen. She played Lucifer the Cat in Cinderella, and many voices from Woody Woodpecker cartoons. She played Granny in the Tweety Bird cartoons. I bet you know that one. And I wish I could imitate that. Oh, hello now, Sylvester. Don't you go after Tweety. But she was perfect. And she played the grandmother in Mulan. And what so many other categories. Tom and Jerry cartoons, Scooby-Doo, the Jetsons, the Flintstones. And, Rocky and Bullwinkle. She was great in everything. And God bless her. If you heard June's voice now, or I did, we'd know it very well. So this is another chance. Well, I suppose you could say she might not have been a first banana. She might not have been a star. She might not have been on the red carpet a lot. She might not have won Oscars or Emmys. But she sure was wonderful, and she's someone else who makes show business what it is, and spent, good Lord, nearly 100 years doing that. So, boy, God bless you, June. And onward and upward for you, too. And by the Larry Miller Store. That's right, folks. And both the Colonel and I thought it's time to mention the Larry Miller Store again here on the Larry Miller Show. And I know it may see just saying it that way sounds like a little too much Larry Miller. But you know what? The Larry Miller Show, what you do is you go to get to the Larry Miller Store, you go to LarryMillerShow.com/store. That's LarryMillerShow.com/store. And boy, oh boy, do we have some good things, though. I think you'll be very happy with anything you get there. I love the Keep Calm and Larry On shirts, the T-shirts. It's from a great English slogan from World War II. Keep calm and carry on during the Battle of Britain and all the bombardment they took from the Nazis and all of that. And they never collapsed because of that motto that was on plaques and posters all over England. Keep calm and carry on. And when Prime Minister Churchill, one of the great men of that era, or any era, used to walk the next day through places that had been bombarded, where people had died. And he always heard people would shout out, with great respect, they would shout out, "Give it them back, sir." And he would nod and look at everyone. And he did. He gave it them back. And so at any rate, though, I love those. Keep calm and Larry on. And as the Colonel loves to say, it's not just a mantra for life, it's the motto sensation that's sweeping the nation. Well, I think so, too. And finally, show how tough you are with the brand new I Survived Volcano #2, and all I got was this lousy T-shirt shirt. Oh, we have a bunch of them. Take a look at it. You know, all All of our shirts are printed on demand, by the way, so you can choose from a variety of colors, and they're available in both gentlemen's and ladies' cut tees and T-shirts. So do that, by the way. Come take a look and come have fun with our stuff. And as long as you're there, come buy it. So you know what? Again, you go to LarryMillerShow.com/store. And boy, oh boy, there's something that's awful. That's just terrific fun to have that commemorates things. T-shirts. Look at what we have, though. And I'm glad you will. And that brings me to my favorite part of the show, the joke of the week. I love this part because I love jokes and I love comedy and I love being a comic. But you know what? There's no better gift than passing along a good joke to a friend or a loved one or a family member. And I hope you like this one and pass it along. Colonel Jeff and I got a good laugh out of this one this morning. And here it is. Two young friends, they're in their 20s, are walking down the streets of Manhattan. That's where they live. That's where they were born. Two Jewish men from the Upper West Side there. And they're walking along, and they're strolling. They're looking for a place for dinner on a nice summer evening. And they pass a church that has a nice sign and a nice setup there that just says, "Come in and convert and get $100 for it." And, well, they notice that, they walk, they keep walking, get about a block past it, and they look at each other, and one says, "You still thinking about that sign at the church?" "Yeah, I am, $100 to convert to Christianity." And one of the friends says, "You know what, why don't I go in there and I'll do it, and then you just wait here for me, and if it takes too long or if it's just too annoying or anything's wrong, I'll just, come out and call it quits, and then we'll just keep going, walking to dinner." "Well, okay, that sounds good." So he goes into the church there, and his other friend just leans against a lamp post there and checks his watch. And, well, about 20 minutes later, there comes the friend out of the church, and that's not so long. It's nothing, in fact. And his friend looks at him and says, "Wow, get a load of you. You did it, huh? Did you get the money?" And his friend just shakes his head and sighs and says, "With you Jews, it's always about the money." I think that's fun and cute. And so that's the joke of the week. If you like it, please pass that along. And it'll make it all worthwhile. And that brings me to my second favorite part of the show, the Poetry Corner. And this is just as worthwhile. There's nothing more wonderful than a good poem. Short or long, it doesn't quite matter. If it's good and if it's written by a great wordsmith, a great poet, it's worth it as well. And I hope you like this one the same way. I thought, and both the Colonel and I thought, this is a terrific poem. It's called A Very Short Song by Dorothy Parker. I hope you know something about her. By gosh, she was born in 1893, an American, of course, and died in 1967, and was famous for, the work she did, the poems and articles she wrote, and they all sat down for lunch. What a group around at the Algonquin Round Table in Manhattan. And I've been there just to see it, to see where these great people, Harper Marx was one of them, good Lord, Robert Benchley, and it goes on. And they were there every day, and they were so witty, and they would drink and eat and laugh with each other and just, send little shots into each other. But boy, oh boy, she was one of the best. So here it is by the great Dorothy Parker, A Very Short Song. Once, when I was young and true, someone left me sad, broke my brittle heart in two, and that is very bad. Love is for unlucky folk. Love is but a curse. Once there was a heart I broke, and that, I think, is worse. Isn't that lovely, folks? Boy, oh boy. She knew how to describe, not just her life, but yours and mine as well. Thank you, Dorothy. And, boy, that was a great one. And that brings me to my third favorite part of the show. Triple M, MMM, the magic movie moment. What a great movie this is. And I saw this listed, and I just spoke to the Colonel about it. He said, that's a terrific movie. Why don't you tell folks about that today? And I said, that sounds good to me. The movie is called Inherit the Wind from 1960. And a great movie it was, based on, by the way, the play written, Inherit the Wind, by Jerome Lawrence and Robert E. Lee. And no, not the General, Robert E. Lee, but a beautiful book, a great play. And this movie, though, Inherit the Wind, directed by Stanley Kramer, starring Spencer Tracy, Frederick March, Dick York, Claude Akins, so many, another dozen people who just make that wonderful. And I mentioned some of those names, by the way, because they deserve it. Like June Foray, they deserve it. Dick York plays the lead, the fellow who's on trial. And he's been charged with, a very famous and true crime in the 1920s in Tennessee. And he was charged and of bringing dirty stuff into his classroom. He was a teacher, and it wasn't dirty stuff, but folks did think it was. And a really true story came out of that, and two lawyers battling it. And Claude Akins played the local preacher, the father of Dick York's girlfriend in it. And folks, you've seen Claude Akins in 100 things. Well, Dick York, by the way, is not only in movies and television, but you know Dick York from playing Elizabeth Montgomery's husband in Bewitched. Oh, he was so good in everything. But Claude Akins, holy mackerel, folks. He was a great dramatic actor. He was a great comedic actor. He was just terrific. And when he was playing meaner guys, boy, you knew it. He would come right off that screen. You'd think, yikes, holy mackerel. And he deserves every salute you give him. And that cast, though, good Lord, building to Spencer Tracy against Frederick March in court. And the scene, that's what I want to talk about, of the magic movie moment of Tracy cross-examining March, who's on the stand. And folks, it's beautifully written, and it moves so well, but it builds to a point of, that Tracy says, asked about Sponge, because the sponges because Frederick March is playing a character. It's all based on real characters, by the way, who was so biblically taught. He was well taught in the Bible and knew it backwards and forwards. And Tracy says to him at one point, as he's cross-examining him, he said, "Well, what about sponges then? If you think this way, does for instance, does a sponge think?" And Frederick March doesn't quite see anything coming, so he's on the stand there, and he smiles and says, "If the Lord wishes a sponge to think, it thinks." And Tracy goes back to the room, to his table where his client is, and just suddenly his voice grows in power, and he says, "This woman wishes to be accorded the same rights as a sponge. She wishes to think." And boy, oh boy, folks, the way he acts that, and then the response of March going, well, but she has lost the way. She doesn't know what she says. What way is that? Is that your way, sir? Is that your biblical way? It's not in the Bible. Is it yours? Is that what we're looking for? Matthew Harrison Brady, a book of Brady? Is that what you want, to be another book in the Bible? And March is on backing up now. Well, no, I would never said Brady, 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 all hail Brady. And I remember one of the lines of, we'll hex the Pentateuch and slip you in neatly between Numbers and Deuteronomy. And March is just, no, I don't. And Spencer Tracy tears him apart. Not in a mean way, but he wins. He wins the cross-examination. And he helps his friend down when he says, no more questions. And they were old friends, and then they stopped. And at one point in the movie, Frederick March says to him, and Frederick March is an older man in the movie, and says to him, good Lord, we were always such good friends. What happened? Why did you move so far away from me? And Spencer Tracy looks at him and says, all motion is relative. Perhaps it was you who moved furthest away simply by standing still. And it really, well, there's so many lines like that of just, holy mackerel. But in this scene, in that courtroom, when Tracy holds his arm out and sort of the shaking hand of his old friend takes it, and Tracy walks him down through the courtroom back to his wife there, past those little gates. It's very moving, folks. A great movie and a great magic movie moment. Whew. Those two titans acting with each other and against each other. Please see it sometime. Inherit the Wind from 1960, directed by Stanley Kramer, starring Spencer Tracy, Frederick March, Dick York, Claude Akins, and so many others. And, well, please let us know. I hope you like it. And you know what? Because it's so often things you don't see coming that stay with you the rest of your life. Things you don't understand. I just got a part in a movie, and I'm very happy, and it's shooting in Western Massachusetts, near where I went to school, at Amherst College, and that's in Western Massachusetts, in the town of Amherst. And boy, oh boy, that's why June Foray being from Springfield, Amherst is just 25 miles from Springfield. And there was a great rivalry with Williams College for a long time between those two schools, which is also in Western Massachusetts, in Williamstown. And one morning/afternoon, it was a weekday, I think it was a Wednesday, and our wrestling team was wrestling Williams, at Williams. And we borrowed a car, my 6 friends and I. Well, there were 6 of us all together. And we got in with someone, I can't even remember. I think it was George Dodds, who's always a good friend. Is a doctor now, by the way. And if I sound amazed, it's because, God bless him, we loved him. But it's also not the type of guy you'd say, you know what, maybe he'll be a healer. And but he's still one of the greatest guys. And he lent us his 4-door sedan, a Ford that was, forest green, and we drove to Williamstown to go see this wrestling match. And I drove. George said to me, hey, I want to, this is my car. It was about, it was about 12 years old, I guess, and it was all right, in pretty good shape, a little banged up here and there. And we went, with me driving, the 6 of us, to Williamstown. And we saw this wrestling match. And we won, by the way. We won the wrestling match. Amherst beat Williams. And that was great. And I had never been to Williams before. We were on the campus there, and that was in their gym, the wrestling match. And we were invited by a local house there. Not a fraternity, but where the Williams was already co-ed. So somebody, I was telling the colonel before, I don't know who invited us at that point. You're starting to have a couple of beers and maybe a couple more. And so we went to this house and we had dinner with them at one of their dinner tables in a big room where they would all eat together. And they were very nice, and they were really very, very gracious to us, which was welcome. It was nice. They didn't think of us as some kind of enemy or idiots. They did before we left, but not at that moment. And I brought my friend Cully. He's a great guy, comes from farm country in Iowa. And Cully was there, and he and I, we were all drinking. And I brought, one of the fellows who was sitting at our table said, "Do you want some more?" I said, "Sure, bring it." And he brought, of all things, a bottle of vodka to the table, a big bottle of vodka. And we had, he said, "Here, take this." And Cully and I are seated at the table, and so I poured us 2 glasses of vodka. Glasses. I don't mean shot glasses. I mean water glasses of vodka. And I must have poured us, good Lord, 8 ounces each to fill the glasses. And I said to Kelly, "Listen, this is vodka, and the guy just brought it, so let's just show him, hey, if our wrestling team can beat theirs, let's show him that we can beat him at this drinking." I don't know how I thought of that. I don't know why I said that. I don't know anything. But Cully, who was a football player himself, big kid, he was 6'4", 6'5", and lots of muscles, and he was pretty red in the face already. But he took his glass, and we clinked the glasses together, and I said, "Let's do it all in the same sip." And we did. We started drinking it, and glug, 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 and we're at the table, and there were young women there, and we liked them. Well, we were young men, so we liked the young women, and we kept drinking, and about 10, 12 seconds into the drinking of this glass of vodka, well, it kind of hit something in Cully's stomach, and came back up, and poor guy, I remember just seeing him. He was, if he was red already, he turned double red then. He put one of his hands up in front of his mouth, and, well, you can guess what happened next. It went glub, 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 and he threw up on his hand and through his hand. And the only thing I could think of to do, well, I was going to help my friend to stand up and get him washed up and stuff. And it went all over. Okay, I mean, that's the only way to put it, all over. And I turned to the guy who brought the vodka, and I just said, "You know what? He's fine. But if you don't mind, maybe a couple of towels, say wet towels. Do you mind?" And he said, "Yeah, got you covered." And he got up and darted off and came back with colors, with towels, rather. And Cully at that point was, well, he was 3 sheets to the wind. He was 7 sheets to the wind. But he was all right, and thank goodness he was fine. Just shouldn't have had that entire glass of vodka after God knows what we had all been drinking since the wrestling match, which was about 4 hours before. And at that point, it was time to leave. It was time to go home. Not just because everyone wanted us to leave. That was part of the reason. Okay, it was the reason. It was the whole reason. But we did, and we got to the car. My other friends were at another table there, and they saw what happened to me and Cully. And so we all walked to the car in the parking lot, our car, George's 4-door sedan, Ford, and we got in the car, and I said to everyone else, "No, I'm driving." You know what? Someone else said, because they were all old, as loopy as could be. I said, no, everybody else get in. I drove us here, I'm driving us back, which wasn't that smart anyway. And here's why. But we left the campus at Williams College, and how we got our way back onto the freeway, God only knows. I don't know. And they were in the back seat, and I started going. And folks, the long and the short of it is, I got pulled over by Massachusetts state troopers because they'll notice you going 28 miles an hour on a freeway and kind of swaying in and out of the lane a bit. So these are state troopers. They pulled me over, and I got out of the car, and they said, started to say, okay, we're going to make you walk a line and do this, and, but they looked at me, and they were right, for crying out loud. They said, there's no line walking with this guy. This guy's gone. He's completely drunk. So they said to my friends, you know what, follow us. We're going to take him to the trooper headquarters. Not a big building. I mean, it was out in the middle of nowhere in western Massachusetts there. But it was their main office for the area. There were about 4 or 5 desks. It was kind of like Barney Miller-sized office inside. And they had another room where the cells were. And they had another room, which was their locker room. And at that point, I was a smoker. And they had a trooper who wasn't there. And that my friends were all in the next room, and one of the troopers came out and said, okay, look, we're just going to get some info from him and get it down on paper, and then you can take him home, and we'll worry about the rest of what happens, tomorrow or the next day. And they said, oh, okay, good. And then the troopers left them sitting there, and then the trooper came back, and the trooper into the Barney Miller office there, where I was sitting, and another trooper I hadn't met yet, a guy who was just there, and he sat down opposite me in another chair, just a chair, very close, about 2 or 3 feet away, and he lit a cigarette. And he was just staring at me, and he just kind of blowing it in my face. And I said to him, after a couple of puffs of that he had, I said to him, say, would you do me a favor? They took my cigarettes. Could I bum one from you? And he didn't answer. He didn't respond. He was looking right at me, sort of like laser locked. And I remember he had narrow blue eyes. He was used to questioning criminals there. And he didn't answer. He just took another puff and blew it in my face again. And I said to him again, do me a favor. They took my cigarettes. Could I bum one from you? Nothing. No response. Again, just sat there, and he blew another cloud into my face. And at that point, folks, my friends in the outer room there heard me scream, "Give me a cigarette, you blanking blank." Now, I'm intentionally saying blanking blank because, well, I don't curse on my show here. But you know what the words were anyway. The first one, blanking, well, it ends in ing, and it normally starts with the letter F. So you know what that word is. And the second word, you blanking blank, the second word is a noun and ends in CHE. And I think it's something women use to kill germs or something wherever they want to use it. And so you know what those 2 words are. And I screamed like a gorilla. I was, "Give me a cigarette, you blanking blank." And then there was my friends heard a loud thump. And that was me. That was me hitting the floor after being hit myself a couple of times. And and at that point, with about 5-10 seconds later, one of the troopers came out to my friends and just said, "He ain't coming home tonight." And so they went home. The trooper said, "You go home. You call here tomorrow. We'll see what's going on." And that is where the night, well, took its own turn. And they put me in a cell. They took me up, and I was banged pretty good, but that's all right. Because you know what? They could have done all sorts of things, but they didn't. And they just took me and kind of walked carried me because, well, I'd been pounded around a bit. And they took me into where the cells are, and they put me in one of the cells there. They had 4 of them, if I remember. And these weren't TV cells. These were big cells with thick bars and concrete beds. They're not beds, but that's what they're supposed to kind of look like. And they were just 6 feet, 7 feet long themselves and 2 or 3 feet wide and concrete. And, folks, that's where I was going to be. They clanged that door shut. And I'll tell you what, if you've never been in jail before, you know it then. That's what you are. You're in jail. And you turn around and look at them with a holy mackerel look on your face. And, then they left me. The jail is locked. There was another guy who was out cold, a couple of cells down, and we didn't talk. It wasn't like you hold a mirror out and get to make a new friend. But you know what? They were in there, and they go back into their office there. And I called out to them a few times, after an hour or two. I just said, hey, is there any water here? May I please have, and I was polite, too, may I please have some water, or can you tell me how to use this thing, whatever it was in the cell where you do all your stuff? Well, I didn't have any experience with that. And they'd about had it with me. And so somewhere around 3 a.m. or so, they took me out of the cell because I was bothering them. And I don't blame them, by the way. They took me into their locker room and played medicine ball with me for a while. And that, again, is not like a show or a movie you've seen. They were doing it, and I was the it they were doing it to. And they were tossing me around and slamming me into lockers there. And then they would take me over to the windows, which were, not bricked shut. They had those cinder block type, giant boulder beams. And they would painted green, jail green. And a couple of the guys, there were about 6 of them in there, and they were just tossing me back and forth, and bam, not only hitting me with their shoulders and fists, but then one guy would take me over to where those bricks were and just give me, like the bum's rush kind of, put one hand on your head and one hand on your collar and just kind of slam you down, bam, into where those bricks were. And that, well, folks, I don't care how much you've had to drink, you're going to feel that. And they would, talking to me along the way. Yeah. So do you like this now? Huh? Is this fun also? You were at a party before doing something? Do you like this as much? Boom! Bam, tinkle, slam, punch. And I got to say, by the way, they were fine. They could have done far, far worse. And I knew it then. They were beating me, and slamming me into this and that. But I'm telling you the truth, it was nothing. And even though you feel it and you feel everything, then they took me back to the cell. Same thing as your feet are moving, but not very well. And folks, after it was 2 nights in there, and my friends came back to pick me up, and then we drove back to our school there, and one of the fraternities, our school was just 1,200 guys. It wasn't men and women there, just men. And one of the fraternities threw a ball for me, a party for me, because the word got around campus of what I had done and what I had said and what I had screamed. And folks, that was everyone. I'm telling you, going to the dining hall, everyone was nodding and, giving you that look of, hey, well done. Guys would come up, you all right? And I'd say, yeah, I'm fine. And they'd put, arm around the shoulder, pat on the shoulder and said, you're all right. You did good. And they knew. All you have to do is tell a couple of people, I guess, that story, and it gets around. And at the fraternity we went to, I was the drummer for a band that was playing that night. That was part of what they wanted at that fraternity. It was a fundraiser for me. And I was playing drums, and it was, it was a fraternity, and they had made a big punch with Jack Daniels. It was filled. It was a giant tub with Jack Daniels and some ginger ale and a couple of other things. And I don't know exactly what, but you wouldn't have to know exactly what, say 40 minutes after you drank some. And if you kept drinking it, yeah, well, it kept drinking you. And over where the band was, where I was, they had made and put up a huge banner. And I mean 8 feet wide and 20 feet long. And that banner read in quotes, "Give me a cigarette, you blanking blank." But they didn't write it as blanks. They wrote what I had actually said. And I couldn't stop laughing. I thought, well, that's pretty cool. They knew that. The whole campus knew that. All the police on campus knew it. And they were great guys. I knew all those guys. And we were friends. We liked each other. But boy, I'll tell you what. That happened. And I went to trial there. I had to borrow another friend's car and to drive myself to trial. And I had a lawyer that cost $400 that fraternity paid for by what folks dropped in the kitty there when they came to that party. So that was $400. And by the way, I drove myself in the same car we used to go to the wrestling match. There's some kind of irony there. But I drove myself there and locked the keys in the car. How dumb can you possibly be? And I was alone there, and I ran into a store on the street when little cities and towns still had stores on streets. I said, "Hey, can you got a wire hanger, please, that I could just borrow? I just locked my keys in the car." No, I remember now. I didn't even say that. That was too embarrassing. I just said, "Do you have one?" They gave me a wire hanger. I don't know what I'm doing with this. You know, I just seen, the same thing from TV shows. The same thing you've seen. So I took the paper off it, and I unwound the hanger and kept the curved part, the thing you normally hang on it. And I put it down between the window and the rubber sealant into the car door. I don't know what I'm doing, but I put it down there. And by the way, my trial is starting in 30 seconds. And I put that hanger down there, and I pulled it up, missed a few times, and then, unbelievable, I got it. I did it. It grabbed something, I felt it, and I picked it up, and I went, kind of jerked it up a little, boom, jerked it up. And sure enough, the little button inside the door, I could see just go click, it came up. Well, how do you like that? All right, so I got back in the car and parked it on the street there. One of the blocks had a parking space. Folks, I went in there. There didn't seem to be my lawyer was there, my $400 lawyer, and he was all right. He did a good job. I don't even know what he was doing. You don't know what he was doing, but he did all right. And they didn't send me to any kind of I didn't have to go to a program or go to some kind of thing where you're in a group and you tell everyone what you did or something like that. But that was all right too, and it went away. And the only time it came back again, was, a few months later, I graduated, and my parents came up. I didn't tell my folks about this. I don't know what you would have done, but I didn't tell them. And they came up and, they had a hotel room. They stayed, and sure enough, a day or two after graduation, and Colonel Jeff, by the way, right now is sitting in a chair that I was given as an award by the president of the college, John William Ward, as the funniest guy at school. It was really very meaningful. because I almost just didn't walk over there. I mean, I was in my room. I said, oh, what the heck? I might as well walk over. And I was sitting there when he called my name. And I went up, and that's the chair Colonel Jeff is sitting in. At any rate, the only time this came up again at all was when my parents were up for graduation and they were helping me clean out my room. How dumb can one get? I'll tell you how dumb. And we were just packing everything up and putting it in there. They had rented a station wagon to put things on top, and in the station wagon back part of it. And my dad was in my little, each bedroom had a desk in it and was kind of an office, and you could do your work there. I didn't, but I mean, that's what regular people could do. And he found the receipt from the $400 I had given the lawyer that I had left in my desk. And that's a moment, well, God bless him. We all loved each other very much. He wasn't, burning down mad, but I came back in the room and he said, come here a second. And he showed me the receipt. He said, what's this for? And my dad was a very powerful lawyer himself. So when he gave you that look and held something up, well, your knees and everything else started shaking. And I told him, then, my mom came in and I just told them what happened. And you know what? They said, you should have told us. Because he could have helped. He could have, he didn't have to spend $400, he said, on this or that. I would have come up. And he said, because, they can be pretty tough up here. And I said, I know that. I know it now. And folks, you know what? I wish I had saved that banner. Because that was pretty good. Give me a cigarette, you blanking blank. Screamed. Wow, that was like the heart of an ape screaming that. Howling at the moon. But I know that now, and so do you. Because we know the same things. Homer is Homer, and Pluto is a planet. So remember, folks, as always, if you walked out of bed today and had a job to go to and a home to come back to, and someone there who cares about you, folks, the game's over and you've won. And you sure won't need too much vodka at a table to know that. Be well until the next time.